Bonjour tout le monde, bon après-midi. J'espère que vous allez très bien. Ça fait longtemps qu'on ne s'est pas vu. We'd like to do these webinars during the lunchtime because we know you're all busy and you can have your meal while you eat and you can just listen to us. It's okay. We can't see you. I mean, I'd love to see you, but we can't. My name is Danny Richard, ACFO president. Very happy to be with you today. We're going to be discussing on this webinar about professional development. And our special guest to do so is Joe Bugner. Good afternoon, Joe.
Hey, Danny, great to be here. I'm looking forward to talking about one of my three favorite topics, professional development learning. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe. Looking forward for the conversation here. Joe's has many functions here at ACFO. One of them is a director of professional development, so happy to have him here. We're going to be having this webinar giving you lots of information about our offering for this year at ACFO. And the way we're going to take your question will be at the very end because, like I was saying, we can't see you, but we want to have your questions because I'm sure you guys have some questions for us. The way we do that, as we always do at ACFO, we use Slido. So we'll let you know how that works. You go on slido.com. If you have any type of questions, we'll take them up at the end. Once you go on slido.com, it's going to ask you for a code. And the code that you put in there, it's on the screen right now. It's ACFO-ACAF. You can ask us all your questions and you can actually like them so we can vote them up to make sure we get the most relevant questions. We'll remind you of that a bit later on during the webinar today. Before we get to the actual webinar itself, I want to give you guys a quick update on something we're doing at ACFO, which is we've sent a survey to all our members asking you to tell us about what type of equipment and furniture you are getting when you're working from home. The reason we're doing that is because we've noticed there's a lot of differences between how departments are equipping people to work remotely. Some departments have given reimbursements of furniture up to like $500. Others have been very stringent and saying, you know what, you're going to have to build your case if you want to have a chair or a desk. And because of these inconsistencies, you wanted to see what is something we can do here to push the bar forward, because certain departments, not to name names here, but PSPC, Transport Canada, were one of the departments that were really going forward and said, hey, let's be proactive here because we know that as an employer, they have a legal obligation. Remember this. The employer has a legal obligation to provide you with the tools, equipment, and furniture that you need to do your job. What's different here during the pandemic is you're not working telework as an option. You are being forced to telework. So that means that whatever furniture you need, the employer has to provide. Now, granted, this doesn't mean that everyone's going to get a sit, stand, desk and whatnot, but if you have a need that's not being met, for example, if you're working off a small laptop and you need a bigger monitor or need a wireless keyboard, wireless mouse or chair or whatever it is, a printer, make sure you put in that request. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be accepted because there's certain priority levels, but look, friends, it's been over 13 months that we've been teleworking here, and telework is here to stay in some way, shape, or form. So if the employer is pushing back and saying, for example, you can't have a desk, let us know, because it's not right if you're working off a kitchen counter or you don't have enough workspace. Whatever needs that you have, the employer has a responsibility to provide that to you. And right now, with that survey that we've sent you, that you thankfully you've filled out, we get some more data. And I can tell you, there's a big discrepancy about how the departments are dealing with this. So we'll make sure to follow up on the departments that are giving members pushing back when they want to have some equipment to work from home. All right, let's get to the topic of today, which is professional development. Why are we talking about this? Je vais vous dire pourquoi. À l'ACAF, pour nous, le développement professionnel, c'est important pour nos membres. Not just the training component, but the career development, and they tie in together. At ACFO, it's actually in our mission, which makes us different than other unions. So all unions do the same thing, which is they represent their members, they negotiate their collective agreements. When you have a workplace issue, we're here for you. That's our bread and butter. That's what we're here for. But on top of that, this is something the board of directors saw as definitely beneficial to our members. We want to make sure that you can help you with your career progression by providing you the training that you need so that you can succeed in your career, but also help address workplace issues. This is why we're so heavily invested into professional development. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Bugner, and Joe can walk us through the PD that we actually have for you guys here at ACFO to know which one is free, which one do you pay for, because we have a much more offering than we ever had before. So Joe, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Danny, and welcome everyone. I'll take the next maybe 10 or 15 minutes, not too long, Just to kind of walk you through our professional development offerings at ACFO, kind of broken down into two main categories, just to give you a better sense of what it is we're actually trying to accomplish and some of the things that are available to you. We know that this stuff is sort of rolled out in fits and spurts with some pilots, so some of the branding has been a little bit confusing. So we want to take an opportunity to kind of explain all that, make sure you're not missing out on opportunities you could be taking advantage of. And then, as Danny said, we'll throw the floor over to questions after that. So as I mentioned, our PD brand kind of breaks down into two. The two things we're going to talk about today are the Joint Career Development Program and the Controllership Training Center. So the JCDP and the CTC. We'll come to the CTC in a little bit, but let's start by talking about the Joint Career Development Program. The JCDP, by the way, applications are open now. I'll probably mention that 17 or 18 more times during this session just to make sure that point is really hammered home. The JCDP was born out of collective bargaining. It's something that we lobbied for at the bargaining table for years, and we first secured the funding for it, I believe it was in 2015, 2016. It's the only training program like this in the government of Canada. Basically, the employer provides $1 million a year in funding to the Joint Career Development Program, which is jointly administered by ACFO and our colleagues at Treasury Board within the Office of the Comptroller General. So our group and their group work together to develop the programming every year, and then we throw the applications open to you folks. Because of that, the programming is free, but also because of that, for now, the programming is largely limited to members of the CT-FIN or the former FI community, because that's where the funding comes from that collective agreement. Now, I can tell you it's a priority going forward to try to integrate that program, or to spread that program across all of our groups in the next round of collective bargaining for our new members in the CT community. But for now, any program that has an incremental cost per participant is limited only to the CT-FINs. That being said, we also use this funding to pay for things like the spring tune-up and regional tune-ups events, which are open to everybody. So as we roll things out, we're always try to be clear about who's eligible to participate in the various programming. So the programming that is limited to the CT-FINs, to the former FIs, is done by random draw. And that's, as I mentioned, the applications are open now. You put in your application saying which training you're interested in, rank them by priority, and then there's some sort of black magic and wizardry that happens in Excel that you folks probably understand much better than I do, to allocate based on the results of the random draw. So that's the Joint Career Development Program. And as I mentioned, I told you I'd hammer this home a few times. Applications are now open. If you go to the ACFO website, the JCDP link is in the professional development section, and you can find a list of all the programs that are available there and send in your application. So what is the JCDP fund? So as I mentioned, JCDP now funds the Spring Tune-Up. Spring Tune-Up is sort of our flagship PD event. It was launched back in 2011, and it is open to all of our members, especially in this online world, which we were in last year and will need to be in again this year. There's no incremental cost for additional participants, so we're happy to open it up to members of the CT-AAV and CT-IAU communities as well. But Spring Tune-Up is typically a full day. Again, online, we split it across 2 afternoons just to make it a little bit easier for people to access it across the country, and so you're not staring into your computer screens for 8 straight hours. This is an event that attracts high-profile speakers. We've had Rick Mercer, we've had Jean Chrétien, Clara Hughes, Chris Hadfield, Manjeet Minhas, Peter Mansbridge. The list goes on and on and on. I'm hoping that most of you have been able to participate in a Spring Tune-Up before. Once again, Spring Tune-Up registration is also open right now. And last count, almost 900 of you had already registered, so that's great. Please keep registering for that. So the Spring Tune-Up predates the Joint Career Development Program, but we've been able to roll it into the program to fund it, which has been fantastic because it's allowed us to bring in some really high-profile speakers. Now, Danny, I know Spring Tune-Up's a favorite of yours. Is there anything you wanted to add on Spring Tune-Up before I moved on to some of the additional programming?
I mean, the Spring Tune-Up was part of how we were able to get the Joint Career Development Program. Remember, we used to fund this on our own at ACFO because we wanted to show the employer how important that training was for our members. And because you guys, I mean, we ramped up from 100 to 200. Now it's over 1,200 people that go there every year. We know you want this because you need training. So I think it's fantastic that we're able to roll that into the JCDP. That was all I have for this one, Joe. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Danny. So like I said, Spring Tune-Up now funded by the JCDP, which is great, but that's not all the JCDP funds. The JCDP funds additional programming as well. Now, the specifics of the programming change year after year. Some stuff has been there from the beginning and is offered every year. Some stuff has come and gone. We're always looking for new opportunities to explore new areas as well. So this year you'll see programming like programming from the Institute for Fiscal Studies and Democracy at Ottawa University. That's the institute that's run by former Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page. So they have a 5-day course that we fund through the JCDP. In the past, we've also funded other programming through them. We've got a really great course on authentic leadership, effective and authentic leadership, run by Trillium Teams. Feedback we have from that course is always really solid. It's a 2-day course, so we've continued to offer it because it seems to be working really well for folks. In the last year or so, pardon me, we've brought in more and more training around data visualization and Microsoft Power BI. This is an area for skill development that's been identified by senior leadership as an area for our community to really evolve their skills. It's kind of the leading edge of the wedge into everything related to even AI and the future use of technology. So we've been pleased to be able to offer a fair bit of programming in that area. This past year as well, we started offering some workshops around mental health, both how to be a good ally in the workplace, but also to recognize your own mental health triggers and how to access resources. So that's been a really popular bit of programming as well. And so those are all sort of classroom style courses. Obviously, during the pandemic, those have all been delivered online. And I can let everyone know now that all programming in 2021 is going to remain online. We're cautiously optimistic that we can bring some of these programs back into a physical classroom starting in 2022. But obviously, we take our lead from health and safety guidelines and are not going to be, we won't be the first ones out doing in-person events. We'll make sure it's safe to do so first. But no matter what, whether it's in person or online, those programs more or less stay the same in terms of the curriculum. As well, in JCDP, we offer what we call experiential learning programs. Now, pre-pandemic, one of our most popular ones was an interchange program where we take, it went both ways. So we had a group of members from the regions would come and spend a week in the NCR and get a chance to get tours and job shadow and get a sense of life working at the central agencies and some of the HQs in NCR. And we've also taken FIs from the NCR and taken them out to the regions to give them a sense of what regional operations are like in some of the larger departments with a strong regional presence. As you can imagine, we haven't been able to run the interchange program during the pandemic. So this year we've committed to looking at building out a one-to-one mentorship program, something that could start online, could easily migrate to in-person in future. So we're going to be sort of scoping and building that and piloting that later this year. So look for more information on that one coming up. You know, in the past, we've done job shadowing. So it's not just classroom courses. We try to bring in this experiential learning as well. Now, for right now, what's available for applications are all classroom style courses, again, given the realities of the pandemic. But in future, we're hoping to roll some more of these experiential learning programs in as well. I forgot to put I was going to put a little sticker on there as well. I oversight on my part because applications are open for the JCDP right now. The deadline is June. Danny's going to correct me because I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's 18th. We have it on a slide a little bit later on, so you'll have it there for you. But again, go onto the website. You'll find a link to the application. It's a little bit bigger of an application, obviously, because you have to go through and identify which of the trainings you're interested in and then prioritize them. But it's worth the time. It is free training. We are a recognized training provider. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. Hopefully you don't have any issues getting approval for this sort of thing, but it's free training and it's available to anybody who's working in a CT-FIN position right now. So strongly encourage you to take a look at what's available, get your application in. I noticed there was a question in here that I'll answer right now. We do allow, so if you've received JCDP programming in the past, including in the past year, you can absolutely apply again. We do prioritize people who haven't received training just to make sure that the most people get to take advantage of this. But just because you're deprioritized doesn't mean you won't get anything. With the online model this year, we've got a lot of places for training. There's a lot of people are going to get trained this year. So even if you've received training in the past, there's no harm in applying again. There's a very good chance you're still going to get something. So take a few minutes, look at the offerings, go in and apply. That's all I wanted to say about JCDP. I'll just give Danny a chance to chime in on anything else before I move over to the CTC. Danny, anything to add on JCDP?
Well, thanks, Joe. I think you're absolutely right. The thing is, there's great odds. I know we have some community leaders watching this right now that are in charge of group training for their departments. I would encourage you to share this application form with every single one of ACFO members because Not only is it free training, it's valuable training, right? These are not cheap courses. I mean, the one with Kevin Page is not cheap, I can tell you that. But also, it's really tailored for what we've agreed with the CFOs are things they should work with. And that's why we're happy we're working with the Controller General to assess, is this something that the members should be working on? So that's actually fantastic. It's valuable training. So I very encourage everyone to apply for this, because you've got great odds of actually getting the training. I don't remember the exact number, but I think 70% of people that applied last year received some type of training, which is great odds. Back over to you, Joe.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. So as I mentioned, that's the first thing we want to talk about, the Joint Career Development Program. It's not wholly owned by ACFO. We do this in partnership with the Controller General's Office to the Treasury Board, but the benefit obviously is that it's fully funded. So all the training provided through the JCDP is absolutely free to the participants, including travel when we get into in-person events in the future again. So now I want to talk a little bit more about the Controllership Training Center. So the CTC is kind of the next step in what we've been doing with PD. As Danny mentioned, we started with Spring Tune-Up. Spring Tune-Up demonstrated our ability and our understanding of what it means to deliver training to our members. Working in partnership with our colleagues at the OCG, we've been able to build out the JCDP and make that into a fairly effective and fairly impressive training program. The Controllership Training Center is the next step, because what we did find, as Danny said, 70% will get training, but that doesn't mean we're meeting the demand. There's still more demand for training in our community than we can meet through the Joint Career Development Program. But while Danny mentioned, it's part of our mandate to deliver this training, it's not necessarily what we're funded to do. We did used to fund Spring Tune-Up ourselves, and it was a big piece to fund. We would rather that funding go into some more of our core operations and our direct member supports. So the CTC operates on more of a cost recovery model. The nice thing is we wholly own this. This is our own PD Institute. It is staffed by ACFO staff. It is run out of the ACFO office. We get to set the priorities and we get to operate it, which is great. Where the funding comes from, it does come from participants. Now, we are more or less at a cost recovery model for our members. And the benefit of operating this ourselves is we can also market the courses to non-members. And so I hope none of them are watching. The non-members do pay a little bit more. We'll turn a little bit of profit off people who aren't our members if we can. But for our members, we're not looking to generate a huge profit here. We're looking to cover the cost of delivering these programs. One thing that we're doing with the CTC as well is we're offering custom training options. So we're going to get in a minute to talking about what some of the offerings are, and there's scheduled regular offerings like any other course. You say, oh, the effective communications course is running this day, I'll register for that. But we're actually selling entire cohorts to departments now. So departments like the RCMP, CRA even, who isn't one of the departments we represent, some of these departments are bringing us in to deliver training directly to their members in full cohorts. So we'll get into that in just a minute. But through the CTC, we're able to offer additional programming at a fairly low cost. And one of the first things that we're doing with the CTC, oh, sorry, I wanted to get into this really briefly. I alluded to this a second ago. One of the reasons that we see an opportunity here, and one of the things that we're excited about offering through the CTC, is because we fundamentally understand your workplace realities. ACFO has been in existence for more than 30 years, representing accountants, auditors, and financial professionals in the public service. So when we build a course that is grounded in your reality. From the case studies to the examples to the terminology, we understand what it means to be a financial officer, what it means to be an auditor and an accountant in the federal public service. And we tailor our courses that way using that knowledge. And as I mentioned, it's competitive. This is a bit of a sales pitch, I realize, but it's competitive pricing, right? We're not trying to turn a profit off of this. We're using our existing resources, our existing staff, and we're just trying to meet the demand in the community. And so we're able to offer our training at a lower cost than a lot of the competitors in the marketplace. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we are recognized. So the OCG at TBS has said ACFO is a training provider. It means events like the CT Symposium, which we'll talk about in a second, and the Spring Tune-Up are designated as training, not events, which should facilitate you getting approval to attend them. And we do issue certificates to all of our course participants and event participants so that you can take those to CPA as part of claiming your CPD hours if you're a member of CPA or some other professional body. So it's recognized training at a low cost that's grounded in the reality of working in the federal public service in a finance role. And so like I mentioned, what I want to talk about is the CT Symposium. So Spring Tune-Up is, when it was an event in person, it routinely sold out. We couldn't deliver all of the spots that people wanted in the Spring Tune-Up. So we've added the CT Symposium as an event in the fall part of the calendar, as opposed to Spring Tune-Up is obviously in the spring. CT Symposium is a fall-winter type event. We started it last year, so it's only ever been held online, although we do have the vision of bringing it to be an in-person event in future. But it's very much modeled on the Spring Tune-Up. And again, the last year's event, We brought in some high-profile speakers. Brian Mulrooney was there, among others. This year, we've got Chris Hadfield, who we've had at a previous event, obviously really well-regarded, well-renowned. We've got Mike Pinball Clemens for the CFL fans out there. As a Red Blacks fan, I am a little bit bothered by bringing in an Argonauts legend, but I'll allow it because I think he's going to be a good speaker. Chantal Hebert, we've got Rock Huppé, we've got Charles-Antoine St. Jean, Linda Nazareth. It's going to be a wonderful day. It's going to, well, sorry, 2 days, because like Spring Tune-Up, we're spreading it across 2 afternoons. Tickets are available now for the CT Symposium. We do have early bird pricing in effect, so you can go in and get your ticket now. And actually, if you're one of the departmental training coordinators or community leads, or if you just think there's going to be demand in your department, we do have group discounts available for that as well. So get 10 or more of your friends together to attend, and you'll get a better price for that as well. Danny's always itching to jump in, so I'm going to give him coordinated opportunities to do so, and that's how the trade-off to make sure he doesn't jump in constantly. Danny, is there anything you wanted to add on the symposium before I talk about some of the CTC courses?
Merci beaucoup, Joe. Tu me fais tellement rire. Écoute, on vient d'écrire un événement, le symposium, OK? Puis Joe a raison. Il y avait tellement de demandes pour la mise au point du printemps. On ne fait pas suivre la demande. Parce qu'on s'est dit, on va créer un autre événement. Puis il y a des organisations qui nous ont approchés. Puis on dit, écoutez, on peut le faire pour vous. Moi, le problème, c'est qu'on veut s'assurer que l'information que vous recevez vous est utile, OK? Je sais qu'on veut tout améliorer nos talents en Excel, peut-être en les mises à jour sur le plan comptable et tout ça, mais nous, on veut travailler sur des choses que vous avez vraiment besoin. C'est pour ça qu'on fait venir des gens qui peuvent soit vous inspirer ou soit vous dire, écoute, le leadership, les soft skills, c'est tellement important, ces choses-là. Fait que quand vous investissez dans des cours, assurez-vous que, vous allez en retenir quelque chose, puis vous allez progresser dans votre carrière. Tu sais, dépenser de l'argent pour dire, j'ai eu mes crédits pour for my CPD credits, that's one thing. But you want to make sure you're actually learning something. That's why we make sure that whenever we do a course or a conference, you're going to get out of there and say, wow, I learned something today. So that's my point I want to emphasis on there. Joe, back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. It's an important point that speaks to, we talked about, understanding the needs of the community is we pick topics, whether it's themes for events and speakers or it's the actual classroom courses we're delivering. We're focusing on topics that we know are in demand for this community, right? Again, and we know that because of Danny's relationship with the CFOs, our close relationship with the Comptroller General's office. We're trying to provide the skills that we know our community is going to need to advance their careers. So it's why we focus a lot on soft skills like leadership and communication and emotional intelligence, and why when we talk about technical skills, we're looking at Power BI and data analytics and data visualization. So that's kind of where our area of focus comes from, and it's understanding the needs of this community going forward in their careers. So in addition to CT Symposium, sorry, see, there's my little flag, tickets are on sale now. In addition to the symposium, we do offer courses through the CTC. Now, the first group of courses I'm going to talk about are the in-house courses. We're really proud of these courses because, again, it's able to fill a need that we know exists in the community for this type of skill, and it's able to leverage our own internal capacity and expertise. And what I want to be clear, I'll go through the topics in a second, but I want to be clear that people understand is when we have staff develop courses, it's because they've got some sort of expertise in it, right? We're not just creating courses because we think they're going to sell well. So the workplace ethics course, for example, is delivered by our labor relations folks. And a big part of the job in LR is helping members out of ethical issues, advising members facing ethical issues, understanding the conflict of interest rules, understanding, how to be an ethical professional is a big part of what goes into labor relations. So we were able to build a course with the LR team that focuses on not just how to apply the rules, but how to exercise good judgment in scenarios that we know you face. That course in particular is very case study based. We talk about really specific examples that we've seen in the workplace and how the different rules that are in place and the different ethical guidelines can help guide you through those situations. We also offer courses in emotional intelligence. We've got 2 courses that we're offering this year in EI. One is related to emotional intelligence at work, and one is specifically targeted at people in leadership positions, managers and supervisors. And again, those courses are delivered by Lauren Doty from our communications team, who is a certified EQ facilitator, right? She's gone through, become certified, and is also a certified coach, right? She's got the credentials. This is based on a tested and proven model of how to understand emotional intelligence. So those are really fascinating courses, and they really help you understand your own emotional intelligence and the emotional intelligence and personality styles of people around you. So it's a really good series of courses on interpersonal dynamics and interpersonal relationships in the workplace. And then their communications courses. Again, we've got 2. We've got a fundamental communications course, and then we've got a course that focuses more on concepts of persuasion and influence. I develop and teach those courses. I teach at Carleton University. I've developed courses and taught at Algonquin College as well. So they're all rooted in existing curriculum and existing models. And we're able to take what is existing expertise and existing knowledge and tailor it to our members' realities to make courses that we think are really relevant. To Danny's point, it's not just that you want to check a box and say you've done your training. You want to actually learn something you can apply in the workplace. So for all of those courses, as I mentioned, in 2021, they're all going to be delivered online. Optimistic that hopefully we can return to doing them in person in 2022, at least in part, because I think there's still no replacing that kind of in-person networking and opportunities to get to know one another. But the courses do stand up very well online as well. They're all 7 CPD hours, and for 2021, they're all sitting at about $290 a course. So there's lots more information on those courses on the website, or feel free to contact us if you've got questions about those. So those are our in-house courses, and we're always looking for new areas to develop and hone some of those courses. The other thing we offer through the CTC in terms of courses is partner courses. So much like through the JCDP, we've got a good network of partners that we think can bring training in skills that you're going to need to advance your career. Again, it's the things we hear from senior financial leaders and senior leaders in the government of Canada saying, we need the finance community to have these skills. We need the audit community to have these skills. And that's what we bring. And these partners are people that we know have a good reputation in the market and strong expertise. In some cases, they're some of the same partners who've done courses for us through the JCDP as well. So for this year, we've got, again, more data analytics and Power BI training. We've got a great course on office politics and workplace influence. If you haven't had a chance to check that course out, I highly recommend it. It's a business professor from the University of Montreal who delivers it. And it's just a really fascinating course on different personality types and how to sort of build alliances and build your reputation well and work with others in the workplace. We've got a few courses from our friends at the IFSD that we're planning to roll out this year as well, around strategic reviews and the politics of money. Obviously, I think everybody's aware of the political situation right now and the record-setting deficits and what's going to happen coming from that. So understanding your role as a finance person in driving some of those decisions in strategic reviews, supporting strategic reviews, and understanding the influence of politics and money in the federal government. So great courses there. And we're also going to be offering retirement planning courses here. Again, that's something we've heard from not just members near retirement, but even members just joining the public service. You know, what are my pension entitlements? What is this all about? And that notion of planning for retirement as part of your career trajectory. So we're excited to offer that course as well. And as I mentioned, for all these courses, we do have scheduled offerings. You can go on the website. You can see we've got a spring schedule up right now, courses through May and June. It's a bit of a trial. We don't know what kind of demand there's going to be in May and June. We know it's a very busy time for our members. But then we'll load up as well and have a series of offerings through the fall and winter. So those are scheduled offerings anyone can go and register for. But we do also offer group training. So I mentioned earlier the group discounts for the CT Symposium, but you can also, if you've got anywhere from 12 to 20 people in your team that you think would like that workplace ethics course or the emotional intelligence course, the communications course, let us know. And we can work with you to schedule something that suits your schedule, and we can offer them at a discount as well. So that's some of the notes about group trainings and discounts. Contact me, my email's right there, and we can talk more about that. And then sort of bring us to a close, because I do see some questions are coming in. We want to make sure we have lots of time for those. So I'll just mention a couple of key dates. We sort of alluded to this through the presentation, but the CTC spring semester registration's open now. Those courses will be running through May and June, so you can check them out on the website. Spring tune-up registration is open. That event is running the afternoons of June 8th and 9th. Hopefully many of you have already registered for that. If not, get out and get to that now. It's a free day. JCDP application deadline is June 13th. I don't remember if that's what I said earlier. I might have said 18th, but anyway, June 13th is the JCD application deadline. And then the CT Symposium is running October 26th and 27th, and registration's open for that as well with some early bird pricing. So Danny, I think I've said everything I need to say, so maybe I'll turn it back over to you to add anything you'd like to add, and then we can take some questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's great, great little deck there. And I know a lot of those might have some more questions, so we'll go to that in a second. I just want to remind you how we take the questions. So again, you go to slido.com. We're going to show you that into your screen right now. It's going to ask you for a code. The code you put in is ACFO-ACAF, as you can see on the left side here. Joe, I'll let you take some questions here, but I want to point out a couple of things. One is, the thing about this, the Controllership Training Center is another benefit you get is you're in a room, when you're in a classroom, either virtually or in person, with other similar ACFO members, generally speaking. Sometimes they're non-members, but generally speaking, they are members. And that gives you an opportunity to network. And the reason why that's important is because issues you'll have a conversation. I'll give an example for the ethics course, okay? We all know that if you're an accountant now, you need to have 4 hours of ethics formal training during a 3-year account. We all know this. But when you have examples from ACFO labor relations advisors that are real life examples, because you look at ethics, well, let's be real here. It's not a very exciting topic, right? We've all had ethics courses. We know what it is. Don't fraud, don't anything bad. We know this. But we put you through real life scenarios. And I'll give you an example. What do you do if you're applying for a job, a competition? It's in a pool, and you go in front of an assessment committee comprised of 3 people, one of which is a former manager that you know doesn't particularly like you. What do you do here? Is there a conflict of interest? But if I disclose this and say, I think this person's in a conflict of interest, is that going to get me blackballed? Or what do I do in this case? These are real life examples that we've seen at ACFO because our labor relation advisors encounter these situations because members encounter them and we're aware of. So we put you through these scenarios. And wow, that's an interesting one. What would I do? It's not always black and white. There's that gray area. So being in the room with other fellow members gives you an opportunity to network, but learn from the examples as well. All right, Joe, let's turn over to the questions here. I'll let you take whichever one you see there you like to take right away. Joe, over to you.
So I'll answer the second question first because it's a fairly short answer. Then I can talk a little bit about language training. And I know you've got some stuff to add to language training as well, Danny. So the first one is, do the courses, any JCDP courses require you to have software available and installed on your personal computer in order to take the courses? So while we're delivering these courses online, you will need to have either Zoom or Teams or something like that to participate. The Power BI course, obviously you need to have access to Microsoft Power BI. So what will happen is if you're selected for one of those courses, or if you sign up for one of the similar courses through the Controllership Training Center, you'll get information a couple of weeks before the course about what it is you're going to need. Then we can, we'll provide as much support as we can. Your department IT might be able to provide some support as well. So obviously for Power BI, you need to have access to Power BI, but I think most government employees can access that. And then Zoom or Teams. And then if ever you run into a problem where you can't connect, we'll do everything we can to find workarounds for you. And then obviously if it's a paid course, we can't work around, we'll just refund your money. But we haven't run into any issues yet. We've always been able to get everybody into the courses so far. So it's been able to work fairly well. The question about language training is an interesting one. And I know Danny's got strong opinions about this as well, so I'll let him add to this. But we have in the past offered language training through the JCDP a few times. We've done it in 2 different forms. We funded one-to-one training through one of the language training providers, mostly in Ottawa. So that one-to-one, both in-person or online training. The challenge there is it doesn't scale particularly well. On a one-to-one level, it doesn't scale up, right? It needs to be that one-to-one relationship. We've also provided Rosetta Stone licenses for kind of on-demand self-directed learning. And for those, to be honest, we haven't seen a lot of take-up. People will get the license, but it's hard to fit that in. Unless it's a scheduled course, it can be hard to fit that into your day. But I know, Danny, you've got some thoughts as well on whether or not we even should be providing language training. So maybe I'll let you add to that beyond the specifics of what we've offered.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Listen, everyone, I get the question here. Language training is something that a lot of people want to have access to, and it's difficult to get, right? When we look into the Joint Career Development Program, one of the criteria we had and worked with OCG was, what is something that our members normally don't have access to? So, for example, you don't have access to Kevin Page. If you wanted to take a course on Kevin Page, you wouldn't have access to that. If you want to take a course on Power BI, it's very difficult to find. So we facilitate that for our members by creating those cohorts that we can do, provide the vendor, provide a discount, and make it happen. Language training is more tricky. Here's why. We've offered in the past where we gave members 25 hours of language training. The challenge is that 24 hours of language training normally doesn't really make big of a dent in terms of getting you to the skills, right? BBB or CCC or whatever it is that you need. There's also the fact that we do believe that this is something the employer should be paying for. The employer, if they believe that language training could be beneficial for you, they should be paying for this the same way they pay for your CPA designation. So what I would say to this is, if you're genuinely interested in language training, put it in your learning plan. And if your employer is saying, your boss is saying, well, we don't have the money for this, look, contact us at ACFO. If the only thing you've wanted for the past 3 years is language training and you keep being turned down, let us know. We're not going to come in and go hit on the head of the employer, not at all. But we have to understand, you normally have about, $1,000 to $2,000 of PD dollars every year. And if the only thing you want is language training, you should have that available, because often the employer might say, Well, you meet the current requirements of your current position. Yeah, but you want career progression. And maybe in your career progression, you need BBB or CBC. So if you want that as part of your professional development, you should be able to allow to put that in there. That's why I want to make sure we hammer that out. I want to talk about the other one for the requirements for the systems, Joe, because I think we've run into this a couple of times. We all know that the government has massive firewalls, right? They're very delicate about software you can't download. So when you do go, for example, in a Power BI course, we will tell you what the requisites are, and you want to make sure you download the software, which is free software, but you're right, your department might be holding you back from downloading it. So we want to make sure you get ahead of that, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, so that when you actually come to the course, you've already downloaded the software. Joe, I want to talk about maybe the retirement planning course, and you can add that one to that and take another question if you need be. So the retirement planning is something we added this year because we did have members that said, hey, I'm about to retire soon, and I'd like to know more about retirement, but the courses are not cheap. When we pull these funds together, we go to the Retirement Planning Institute, which they do this exclusively, and we've already entered into a partnership. This is brand new. And we said, look, what if we bring you a certain number of people here, 20 or 30? Can we get a group discount? They said, sure. If you get us enough volume, we'll give you a group discount. So you now have access to this. But I would tell you, the retirement course, you should take it 3 times in your career. At the very beginning, the midpoint in your career, and at the very end. Because as you can imagine, if you take this course only like 5 years before you retire, well, there are some decisions you could have made 20 years ago that had you known, you would have changed your retirement planning here. So it's important to get this ASAP. So I would recommend every single person do this. And this is a course that normally was offered to public servants, but now they've outsourced it. So it's the same course that these people are specifically trained for the public sector pension. So they're experts on it. Joe, anything to add on that one?
No, I think you said it. So it's Retirement Planning Institute. It's like I said, it's the first time we've offered it, so we'll see what kind of demand. But we do know that, as Danny said, every person in the public service should take a course like this. So hopefully you'll be able to fit that in. The question about JCDP eligibility for excluded FIs, I'm going to look to Danny to just double check and confirm. But it's only if you're represented by ACFO that you can participate in the JCDP. Correct, Danny?
That is correct, Joe. Yeah, it depends. I mean, we've been leaning on this. It all depends if there's an incremental cost, right? So if there's no incremental cost, some of our excluded members, if you ask me, I'd open it up to anyone. I think these courses are good to everyone, but the criteria is if ever we would prevent one of our members by accepting a non-member, that's where we have to cut it off. But when it's online and there's no incremental cost, we're more lenient. So if you're a non-member, reach out to us if it's for a conference like the symposium, versus if it's a course, then you have to pay the higher fee. Back over to you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Glad I got that right. It'd be embarrassing if I got that wrong. Next question is, are courses offered in both languages? The short answer is yes. We do offer programming in both languages. It's not always exactly one-to-one, but for Power BI and data analytics, we do have a provider who does the course in French. The IFSD programming is all English, but they've got French materials and some French people on the staff there who can answer questions in French. Effective communications, we do in English and French. Ethics, we do in English and French. So the bulk of the programming is available in both languages, some version of it. And then for all of our larger events, like the Spring Tune-Up and the CT Symposium, there's always going to be simultaneous interpretation. And we do have speakers. We make sure we have speakers who present in both languages. You know, at least one speaker can speak in French or 2 speakers who speak French. So yeah, we do, as much as possible, make all of the programming available in both languages. More information on the retirement course. Excellent questions as we've been promoting it. It'll be coming up. So it's going to be part of our fall programming, which we're just putting the finishing touches. Actually, we're going to be launching a brand new website specifically for the Controllership Training Center, probably within the next month or so. And that'll be part of announcing the fall schedule of courses as well. And that's where you'll find it. So if you're interested in it, it's a little bit unfair because we're teasing it, but it's not up there yet, but it will be up there in the coming weeks as part of the new website and as part of the fall programming. Just scroll down. So for the retirement course, are there other vendors in the market beyond RPI? I would assume so. Danny, can you speak to that? Have you seen any other vendors providing that training?
There definitely is. The reality is whenever you need for a course, many vendors will offer their services, right? The reason we went with RPI is because they're certified. They're certified teachers. They understand the pension fund inside out. I will tell you, I wanted to make sure I myself went on this course to ensure they had the right information. It's a terrific course. They know it inside out. They also have a component about how do you bridge the federal sector pension fund with CPP? You got to combine those. So I'm assuming if someone is asking their question, there might be specific reason why they're asking this. So reach out to us at ACFO. Happy to discuss more about the RPI if they have more questions on that. Joe, can I take the one about someone asked if they need to have their manager approval to put the courses in their learning plan? So if you're applying for JCDP, you don't necessarily need your manager's approval. I mean, I always recommend you ask your manager's approval, okay? But if you're applying for the course, it doesn't cost you anything for JCDP. So if you apply, you put your name in there. I would recommend you put the number of days of the training. So for example, if you're applying for the Power BI course and you know it's going to be over 3 days or 5 days, you put that in your learning plan and you put it's free, because if you win the lottery, it's going to be free. Have the conversation with your manager. And worst comes to worst, if you don't get picked, then you can just take it off your learning plan. But remember, the good thing about the Joint Career Development Program is all the training is free. Everything is free. All you need is the time to attend the PD. And if ever a manager says they want to grant you the time off to attend this free training, definitely reach out to us at ACFO, because that's just wrong. That's just wrong. Joe, over to you.
Yeah, so a couple people are looking for clarification, so I'll repeat this. Yes, so the JCDP is part of the FI collective agreement, and so because it sits within the FI collective agreement, it is primarily for people in the CT Fin, the FI classification. As we've mentioned, so where there are opportunities that don't incur an incremental cost, so things like the spring tune-up, especially in an online world where there's no additional cost to have more people participate, we make that available to all of our members. But where there's a cost per participant, so like the classroom courses, for now those are restricted to people within the CT Fin classification, the FI classification. That being said, it's because it's within the FI collective agreement. As we move and take on the entire CT community, one of our first priorities is going to be rationalizing and consolidating those collective agreements through another round of collective bargaining. And that is something we're going to bring to the table and try to get that Joint Career Development Program funding as part of the new CT collective agreement, and I mean hopefully funded even more funding in that. So Danny, I know that you and Scott Chamberlain have talked a little bit about that, if you want to add anything to that plan.
Écoute, absolument. Tu sais, je sais qu'il y a des vérificateurs internes et externes qui nous regardent présentement et disent, tu sais, c'est bien beau, tu me montres tout ça, but I don't have access to this training, right? So I know they want access to it, and trust me, we want to give you access to it as well. We've already told the employer we're ready to negotiate the collective agreement right now so that we can increase the $1 million fund. Because remember, the $1 million fund was negotiated for about 4,500 members, but now we've had 500 new members, so we got to have to increase that fund because we want to make sure that the new members can have access to it as well. But also, I'm going to tell you a little secret here. $1 million is not enough. We want to up it to $2 million because we're doing fantastic things with this. The Controller General and ACFO are working hand in hand to offer these courses that are valuable. Our members like them. We get great feedback, and they're addressing real needs from our members. So of course, you want to go on there. Joe, can you talk about how do you get the group discount? If I know the members are saying, hey, I want a group discount, how do I qualify for this one?
Yeah, and there's a very specific example there where this person is the only FI in their region, but they're pretty sure the department's probably doing a group thing. The best thing to do is, honestly, first of all, if you know of your community lead or your training coordinator for your department, contact them, because in many cases they've already been in touch with us. But otherwise, just send me an email. I'll let you know if we've heard from that department and see if we can connect people, because obviously we want as many people to be able to take advantage. So if you're by yourself but wondering if you could be part of a group, no promises, but send us an email and we'll see if we can connect you with somebody. And then with the Chris Hadfield event, the CT Symposium in particular, that's not just restricted to FIs. So if there are 10 people in your branch or your region or your team, even if they're not members, get in touch and we can see what we can do about a group discount, even for people who are not members, because that event is wide open to anybody. It's not restricted to our members. There's a question as well about slides being available to community leads. Yes, we will, and also the slides will be posted on the website once they're back from translation, so likely next week. We'll get them up on the website as well, so they'll be available to everybody. And all the information from the slides as well is throughout the website in the PD section. So you'll find it all there, but we'll be posting the slides to make it as easy as possible for people to find on the website.
Joe,
so Danny, there's repetitive. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I heard you talking.
Take this one en français. Y a-t-il une raison? Moi, je veux dire, c'est une très bonne question, ça. Y a-t-il une raison pour laquelle toutes les présentations de l'ACAF sont pas dans les deux langues officielles? Okay? C'est une très bonne question. Je vais vous dire pourquoi, les amis. C'est une question de volume. C'est comme quand on offre des cours en français. S'il n'y a pas assez de gens, c'est difficile pour nous de continuer. Puis il ne faut pas dire, ben c'est pas grave s'il n'y a pas assez de gens, c'est un droit fondamental. Je suis d'accord avec vous. Dans l'écran qu'on voit présentement, si on met 2 slides séparés, ça serait trop petit. Moi, ce que je vous propose, c'est de nous faire plaisir. Toute l'information qu'on vous donne est disponible sur notre site web présentement et c'est dans les 2 langues officielles. On pourrait effectivement, quand on fait des webinaires comme ça, ad hoc, c'est plus informel. On pourrait là, rajouter des traducteurs ici présentement à live, mais il y a un coût pour ça. Puis nous, on dit, vos cotisations syndicales, puisqu'il y a un nombre limité de gens qui sont là aujourd'hui, on préfère investir sur la traduction sur notre site web, qui est toujours bilingue, et les événements formels dans lesquels là, on va s'assurer qu'il y a de la traduction simultanée en tout temps. C'est parce que je vous dis, c'est une question d'utilisation efficace de vos cotisations syndicales. Et si jamais vous voulez avoir le slide qui est traduit, il n'y a pas de problème, envoyez-nous un courriel, mais on ne peut pas le présenter les deux à l'écran présentement parce que ça c'est trop petit. And Joe, I'll take the other one here that says, are we paying for these courses with our union dues? No, you're not. Absolutely not. JCDP is 100% covered by the employer, and the Controllership Training Course Center courses are funded by the participants. So whoever buys the course, so it's 100% funded by the course when they're purchased. So it's not, your union dues are not being used for this. Joe, back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. There's a question here about the ethics course and the CPA requirement for the ethics course, and I'm gonna answer that, but also answer more broadly because we do the question sometimes about CPD credits for CPA. So the ethics course that we've developed was developed with that requirement in mind, but also more. So the requirement, I think, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the CPA in the room, is 4 hours. Our course is 7 hours. We apply also some themes around difficult conversations and workplace conflicts beyond just ethics. But it was certainly developed with that requirement in mind. We do issue a PD certificate, and we encourage our members to claim those CPD hours with CPA. But CPA will never give blanket approval to something either meeting the ethics requirement or just being usable for CPD hours. They'll never say this course will get people 7 CPD hours. We give you a certificate that says, look, this person took this course. It was a 7-hour course, and to claim it. But CPA will never give blanket approval. And part of that as well is because different provinces interpret the requirements differently, right? So we will tell you, we will give you a certificate that says, yes, you attended. You can then take that certificate and put it as part of your CPD claim. As far as I know, we've never had any member have their claim rejected or pushed back on. But we don't get blanket approval. But the short answer is it was definitely developed with that requirement in mind, and we know that people who've taken the course have submitted it for that requirement, and we haven't heard of anybody having any issues with that. Danny, do you want to add anything quickly on the CPD, or sorry, on the CPA specific issue?
You're absolutely right, Joe. We've reached out to all the provinces, and they said no. We reached out to CPA Canada to get a blanket approval, and they said, look, all the provinces have their own requirements. What each province does, and we know because we looked into it. I mean, I myself have looked into this. They will tell you a couple of bullets you need to hit, right? You need to have a confirmation that was there, a CPD accreditation. You need to make sure the breaks aren't being counted. And just so you don't know this, breaks never count as part of training. So if you're going to a conference, make sure your breaks are not in there because they don't count. And also in our ethics course, we actually go through CPA or Ontario or Quebec, depending which one you're applying for, code of conduct. So we actually go through that. So in terms of being recognized for the CPA CPD credits, not a problem at all. Absolutely go so. It does qualify for it. For the cost, I think it was $290, I believe. Yeah. Joe, back over to you for the next one.
Yeah, there's a question there about adding courses to help with the CFE exam. We haven't so far. Again, that's an example, as Danny alluded to earlier. There are other places in the marketplace to go and get that sort of support. In fact, I know the Comptroller General's office has coordinated sessions with other CPAs in the Federal Public Service, a free session as far as I know. Now, if we feel like there's demand, and if you as a community tell us there's demand to help facilitate that, yeah, we'll absolutely look into it. But that's an example of there's a lot of that already in the market and accessible to you, including through the Comptroller General's office from time to time. But send us an email if you think it's something. If you can make a compelling case, we'll look into it. What we can offer through this Controllership Training Center is really limited by our existing resources and what we can deliver. And we have to make some difficult decisions sometimes around prioritization and make sure that we're delivering the courses that are going to offer the most value to the most people. But if you can make a compelling case, we'll certainly listen to it. So Danny, there's a question here about, it's similar to the one you answered earlier, so maybe I'll let you answer this one as well, around putting the courses in their training plan right away or waiting until they actually win the lottery. It relates a little bit to the question you answered earlier about managerial approval.
Yes, I'm assuming this one is referring to the Joint Career Development Program. So in this one, yes, I would recommend put in the course you're applying for. Because remember, when you're applying for this $1 million training fund, you're ranking all these courses. You can apply for all of them, but you got to rank them in order. And when we do the draw based on your preference. So I would say put in a couple of days for whichever course you would like to do, and it's free, so there's no cost. This way, your manager, you can say, hey, this one, there's no cost to it, so I want to make sure it's in my learning plan. And there is a high chance that you will win something. Maybe not your first choice, but out of all the choices you put in there, pretty high chance you'll get something. So I put it in there. And if it's the controllership training center, the courses that you do have to pay, then definitely put that in your learning plan, because you will need your manager's approval for that one. I'll come back to the CFE course one, Joe. One of the things that you're right, I mean, if there's such a demand, we'll look into it. But generally speaking, the CFE exam, the prep course, the one from Densmore specifically, is covered by the employer. I mean, I've had a couple of situations where we had to escalate this, but the employer will tend to cover this one. But if it's not, definitely let us know. Joe, back to you for the open for the group bookings there.
Yeah, now basically. So for the CT Symposium, there's information already on the website, but that information I think is just contact me. So send me an email and we can talk about group registrations for the CT Symposium. If you're interested in any of the courses that we've talked about or any of the courses listed on our website that we operate, in terms of the partner courses, honestly, it's easier for you approach them directly if you're interested in any of those. But for like workplace ethics, effective communications, or emotional intelligence, just send me an email. It all comes down to the availability of our team to deliver it. So we've got different staff who deliver the different courses. But if you've got a group of 12 to 20 who are interested in one of those courses, we can do it anytime. Send me an email. In fact, the summer might be a better time to do it because we don't have a lot of scheduled programming. So it might be easier to find the people to deliver them. So yeah, by all means, send me an email and we can talk about it right away. It's an interesting question here about an information session on ergonomics at home. I think this is more of a topic potentially for a webinar than a specific course. So to that one, maybe duly noted, let us look into it and we'll see if we can find someone to come in and deliver, because I think it's a great idea. As to Danny's point earlier about the work from home equipment, 13 months in, it doesn't look like this is ending anytime soon, and certainly not ending permanently. So suggestion noted, we'll look into that. Danny, do you want to take on this next one about collaborating on training with local chapters of other professional institutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like if everyone out there is watching this and they're saying, you know what, we'd like to collaborate with ACFO, let us know, reach out to us. Now, keep this in mind, whenever ACFO developed the courses, we've said, do we need to do this or could we just outsource this to someone else? And we've realized no one knows our members better than we do. No one has the relationships that we have with the employer to identify what those blind spots. So we figured, you know, if we can do it ourselves and add value, we'll do it. But if there's an organization out there that really can add value to our members, and this is where I really want to stress the point, is collaboration for collaboration's sake is something different versus actually two organizations adding value to one another. That's what we're looking for, creating those synergies. And if there's someone out there that you know we could be collaborating with, absolutely let us know, put us in touch. At ACFO, we pride ourselves on partnerships that we build with other organizations. We're always happy to do that.
Yeah, in particular, I know the question specifies the IIA, the Institute for Internal Audit. And that's certainly one that as we take on the audit community as part of the CT group, we're certainly going to be reaching out to them, not just on training. Honestly, like we've built a good relationship with CPA Canada. We'll be doing the same with IIA as we sort of learn a bit more about what it means to represent audit folks. So excellent. I appreciate the question. And to Danny's point, you know, we're open to talking to anybody because, you know, we just want to deliver training and programming that's going to be useful to our community. So if someone else is better suited to do that, or if a partnership model is better suited to do that, we're absolutely open to that for sure.
Joe, I want to thank you very much for this one. I think we've answered the question. We're getting close to the 1 o'clock time here. So I want to thank you, Joe Bugner. Thank you very much for being here today and giving the insight. I know it's taking you and the team a lot of time to deliver the courses. I'm very proud of that. And I want to thank the members as well. You know, we got some great suggestions here today. And remember, ACFO is an organization that belongs to you. If you feel there's a course out there we should be delivering, that there's a need for it, not necessarily just a want, right? Just between a want and a need that adds value, let us know. I mean, so many good ideas. I love this idea about, you know, information session on ergonomic assessments. Yeah, you know, we can bring a speaker here, give us the highlights, what the, you know, do's and don'ts, what are the top 10 things they see in the office. That's a fantastic idea. Very low cost, we could do that. So it's thanks for putting that forward. And moving forward, if you have any questions on this, let us know. For everyone watching this right now, yes, to the community leads, we will be sending out the deck. And also, if you want to have more information on this one, feel free to reach out, myself or Joe. Happy to provide a more in-depth training or presentation to you guys if need be. All this information is available on our website. If you go on ACFO and then you go on professional development, everything is there. I will leave you with this message, friends. Apply, apply, apply. For the Joint Career Development Program, the training is free. It is valuable. It is useful. Apply for it. Spread the word. We're doing this not because we're trying to make a profit. We're doing this because we want to serve our members. So at the end of the day, if it's not adding value to you, let us know. If you want to see more things, let us know. On that note, I want to wish you guys a good afternoon. Thank you very much, Joe. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone. Stay safe.